Insects have mastered surgery, but they don't do it to save lives. They do it to take them. Let me explain. These wasps are known as parasitic wasps. They have evolved to be so precise that they can paralyze their prey, usually some kind of spider or caterpillar, with a single sting. First, the wasp flies up to its victim and stings it with its needle-like ovipositor. It only takes a second. Then it flies off before the spider even realizes what has happened. But the sting was no accident. In fact, the wasp had its eye on the prize the whole time. It stung the spider to paralyze it without killing it, and then it laid its eggs inside of it. Eggs hatched into male and female larvae, and they began eating the live spider from the inside out. They started with the least vital parts of the spider's body, keeping the most vital parts for last. This way, the food source stayed fresh as long as possible. Some species of parasitic wasps inject a different type of venom into their spider victims. They actually target specific nerve ganglia in the spider's body, specifically the ones that control movement. When they immobilize these sections of the nervous system, the spider becomes completely paralyzed but remains conscious and alive. The paralyzed spider is now nothing more than a food source for the growing larvae. The same thing happens when parasitic wasps lay eggs inside of caterpillars. Some wasps even wait until the caterpillar pupates before laying their eggs. If you didn't know, a pupa is like the teenage stage between caterpillar and butterfly. The parasitic wasp simply cuts open the side of the pupa and crawls inside. It lays its eggs and then it dies. The eggs hatch into male and female larvae, and they begin to feast on the caterpillar from the inside. Wasps aren't the only insects that do this. There are also parasitic flies that do the same thing. There was even a parasitic fly that laid eggs inside of a Madagascar hissing cockroach. The larvae grew up inside of the cockroach, eating it from the inside out. Eventually the cockroach died, but the larvae continued to grow outside of the dead roach's body, turning the once mighty insect into something straight out of an alien movie. There are also parasitic beetles that lay eggs inside of other insects. And there are even parasitic mites that lay eggs inside of bees. All of these creatures have found a way to turn their insect victims into their personal food source. As you can imagine, it would be very difficult to survive if something like this happened to you. But believe it or not, there are even more horrible ways to die. I bet you haven't heard about this one before. You are relaxing in your garden one day when suddenly you feel a sharp prick on your arm. You look down and see a tiny little wasp crawling away. You pull your arm away just in time to see the wasp crawl under a leaf. You shake your arm to get rid of any pain and you go back to relaxing in your garden. A few minutes later, you feel another sharp prick on your leg. You look down to see another tiny wasp crawling away. You pull your leg away just in time to see this wasp crawl under another leaf. You shake your leg to get rid of any pain and you go back to relaxing in your garden. This keeps happening over and over again every few minutes. Every time you look down, you see another tiny little wasp crawling away. Dozens of wasps have crawled under leaves all around you. You start to panic as you try to swat at all of these wasps, but they're too fast. They crawl under leaves just out of your reach. You try to run away, but wherever you go, there are more wasps waiting for you. They crawl onto your arms and legs and they start stinging you over and over again. Finally, you collapse to the ground, completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of wasps. They continue to crawl all over your body as you lay there dying. It might sound far-fetched, but this is exactly how some people die in South America. There is a species of parasitic wasp that attacks humans called the bullet ant. It gets its name because the sting feels like being shot at. Bullet ants build their nests deep in the jungle, and that's where they stay until they need to find a host to lay their eggs in. When they find a suitable host, they crawl all over the person, biting and stinging them until they find an open wound. Once they find an open wound, they crawl through it and lay their eggs. When the eggs hatch, they begin eating the person from the inside out. And we're not talking about just eating their fat and muscle. We're talking about eating their internal organs, their nerves and their bones. The bullet ant larvae digest acids that break down human tissue. They are able to eat human flesh with ease. If that wasn't bad enough, the bullet ant eggs can contain multiple embryos. A single bullet ant can lay up to 200 eggs at once. That means that you could have hundreds of these parasitic wasps eating you alive. The bullet ant larvae grow and develop inside of their host, getting bigger and bigger. As they grow, they need more and more food, so they start eating more and more of their host. Eventually, they consume so much of their host that the host dies. Now that their food source is gone, the fully grown larvae crawl out of the dead body and fly away. They go off to find a new host to lay their eggs in, and the cycle begins again. It sounds like something out of a horror movie, but it's reality, and unfortunately, there is nothing you can do to stop it. There are much more painful ways to die, such as being burned alive or torn limb from limb. But there is one thing that makes the death by bullet ant the worst, and that is that it is extremely slow. Imagine feeling the burn of a wasp sting. Imagine feeling your entire body being eaten alive by parasites. Imagine watching your life force slowly drain away as you are consumed from the inside out. This is the fate of those unlucky enough to be chosen by the bullet ant. It's a fate worse than death. When you think about it, death by bullet ant is actually a mercy killing. If you were being eaten alive by these parasites, you would probably want to die quickly. But the bullet ant doesn't give its victims that choice. It tortures its victims slowly, taking their lives bit by bit. And that's why I think death by bullet ant is the worst way to go. Of course, it's not the only horrible way to die. There are many other insects and arachnids that kill in similar ways. For example, there are spiders that wrap their victims in silk and then eat them alive. There are also mites that lay their eggs inside of living hosts. And there are even more parasites that use their victims as both food and shelter. The natural world can be a very harsh place. Even if you're not in South America, you should always be aware of your surroundings. You never know when you might run into a parasitic wasp or bullet ant. One thing's for sure though, if you ever do run into one of these creatures, you won't be for long. Death by parasitic wasp or bullet ant is not something that anyone should ever experience. It's a fate worse than death. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.